po ulit. Ito po si Mia and welcome to another episode of the Prayerful Life where I share inspired wisdom, insights, and understanding of life's difficult questions. This is in order for you to deepen your faith and to open your heart to the wonders of God's love. For today's topic, I will share with you how to get your prayers answered. Paano ba masasagot ang mga panalangin mo? Paano na ang lahat na pinagdarasal mo ay ibibigay ng Panginoon? Stay tuned. Naranasan mo na ba na may pinagdarasal ka at nang masagot yon, ang saya-saya mo? Yes, ako din. Naranasan ko din yung ganon. At naranasan ko din na kahit anong dasal ko, hindi siya sinasagot. At hindi ako naging masaya. Well, it is part of human nature na pag hindi natin na-achieve yung ating kagustuhan, ay nalulungkot tayo. Pero merong paraan na kung ikaw ay nagdarasal o ikaw ay may hinihiling sa ating Panginoon, ay ibibigay sa'yo. Ano nga ba ang prayer? Ano nga ba ang prayer sa ano mo? Sa pagkaintindi mo? Well, sa akin, prayer is communication between God and ourselves. It is a communication line. Merong linya between you and God. And prayer is also personal, meaning, ikaw ay humihingi sa Kanya, ikaw ay nakiusap, ikaw ay nagpuri sa Kanya, at siya din ay may sagot sa iyo in the form of blessings, in the form of answers, in the form of insights, in the form of protection. Diba? So, prayer is very important, lalo na sa panahon natin ngayon na daming mga nangyayari na hindi natin naintindihan. Kasi yung prayers is an open channel for knowledge, guidance, and protection. So, how many times in a day ka ba nagdarasal? Kailan ka ba nagdarasal? Is it every morning only? Once a day? Several times a day? O minsan, once a week? Merong iba dyan na nagdarasal lamang pag may krisis na sa buhay. So, itatanong mo, how do I get my prayers answered? Paano ba masasagot? Paano ba masasagot ang mga panalangin ko? Simple lang ang answer dyan. Mga kapatid, how do you get your prayers answered? Is that you have to align your will with God's will. Simple lang, diba? Simple sabihin. Pero, ang hirap gawin kasi kailangan ng dedikasyon at panahon para pagtutukan at i-develop yung relasyon mo between yourself and our Creator, which is God. So, how do you align your will with God's will? Sa Tagalog ng will is kalooban, di ba? Merong 4 na paraan para gawin yan. Una, spend a lot of time in prayer. You have to pray a lot. Okay? Hindi yan simple. And I'm talking about spending time in prayer na heart to heart. Hindi yung basta ka lang nag-pray, hindi lang yung bibig mo lang, yung nagsasalita, pero puso mo at isip ay wala dyan. Wala sa mga sinasabi mo, wala sa pinagdarasal mo. So, it's very important that you set aside time every single day and do it several times a day if you can to ask and inquire and talk to God. Parang sa relasyon ba, human relationship, na kung gusto mong makilala yung taong mahal mo or minamahal mo, you spend time with them and you nurture the relationship. And that is one purpose of prayer. Na you spend time talking to God in the day. At gusto mong siguro na you're wondering then, paano nga ba ako mag-pray? Well, my friend, sasabihin ko sa'yo na prayer is just talking to God. You can pray sa pagising mo. Upon waking up, sasabihin mo, Lord, thank you na nagising ako today. That's all. That's all you need. That's prayer. Or prayer can also be formal prayer. Na kung saan maghahanap ka ng lugar, meron kang special place, meron kang altar, meron kang ritual, kumbaga, kung saan ipiprepare mo yung sarili mo para maging open ka at ready ka to spending time with God. You know, it's similar to how we go out on a date. Yung nagpe-prepare ka, yung nag-aayos ka sa sarili mo, or you care about the meeting that you prepare. So yun yung formal prayer. Most people also like going to church, for example, kung saan they will dress up their best clothes, Sunday's best, at prepare themselves, you know, like quiet down. If you are the type of person na gusto yung prayer time mo ay kung ikaw yung tao na gusto yung prayer time mo is undisturbed, pupunta ka sa isang lugar na kung saan malayo sa maraming ingay, and then you spend time in prayer. That's what Jesus did as well. Kung maalala nyo sa Bible stories, diba? Na He set aside time for prayer. And that's why Jesus knows the Father's will so good na alam niya that He fulfilled what He came here on earth to do. So that's the first one, how to align your will with God's will upang masagot ang prayers mo, which is to spend a lot of time in prayer. So you can pray, like I said, the short prayer, and just saying thank you, or you can also set aside time during the day for the more much formal prayer na kung saan you prepare the venue and prepare yourself for that event. For example, yung nagro-rosary, diba? They will prepare their beads, they will prepare the rituals, the candles and all that. And so they were preparing their mind and themselves. And also, it is also a form of prayer, yung just thinking about God all throughout the day in every little thing or big things that you're doing. As long as you are offering that to God, it's also a form of prayer. You know, like halimbawa, for myself, when I'm washing dishes, yun yung time na nagre-reflect ako how was my day so far. Was I loving? Was I responsive to people in a way that is pleasing to God? That's also prayer. So basically, the more you spend time communing with God, thinking about God, thinking about higher things, spiritual things, the more you will be in tune with God, and the more it will open up the door for the fulfillment of your wish, which is an answered prayer. Okay, moving on. The second step to align your will with God's will is to be humble. This is very important, guys. Humility. Yung pagpapakumbaba. Humility is very important because it is a necessary attribute upang mabuksan mo yung puso mo. Have you noticed na if you are proud, for example, no, in real life, halimbawa meron kang karelasyon and then meron kayong konting conflict, and meron kayong issue, and then both of you are not in a in short, both of you are ma-pride, ayaw makipag-ayos, ayaw makipag-usap. At ang kulang doon, the problem could have been discussed if one of you is going to be humble. There is humility. Humility is very important. Acknowledging that God is powerful, and you are willing and humble to listen. Yun. Kasi, importante na yung puso natin ay papakumbaba upang ma-align natin ang ating kalooban sa Panginoon. If we acknowledge na God's will is better than our will, which is our human will, na merong flaws, merong kapalpakan, imperfect, at kadalasan we have very big prides, humongous pride, yung ano ba yun sa Tagalog? Garbo sa Bisaya. Kung wala kang humility, wala kang pagpakumbaba, mahihirapan ang Panginoon na i-reveal sa iyo yung kalooban niya sa buhay mo. So, kaya importante yung maging humble tayo. Okay? That's the second way to align ourselves with God's will. Number 3 is patience. Patience, guys. Kailangan na tayo ay mataas at mahaba yung pasensya. Patience is very important to align ourselves with God's will. Kasi yung timeline natin, iba sa timeline ng Panginoon. At kadalasan tayo gusto natin ora mismo, gusto natin instant gratification. Gusto natin na pag may hinihingi tayo, we wanted God's answers to be in our own timeline. Gusto ko bukas, Lord, meron ng ganyan. Gusto ko pag ganito na ako, mangyayari na to sa buhay ko. Minsan, Panginoon ay alam niya kung ano yung perfect timing sa mga sa bawat importanteng pangyayari sa buhay natin. So, it is very important to be patient, because patience also help you to develop and build your character, which is very important din upang maging successful tayo sa buhay. At ang pang-apat na way for us to align our will with God's will is to surrender. Surrender na dyan. Okay, right. We are looking at life, as I've said before, from our own human perspective, which is very limited. Parang ganito tayo, nakikita natin ganito lang, but from God's perspective, He's looking down on us and sees the whole picture. So, kailangan na pag nag-surrender tayo, kung gusto natin talaga na ma-align yung will natin sa kalooban ng Panginoon, we align our will with God's will, we have to surrender. I learned this in my life as well, na kahit meron tayong napaka-ingranding, napakalaking plano sa buhay natin, without surrendering to the will of God, madidisappoint tayo. Dahil iba yung plano natin, iba yung imagination natin ng buhay na kinikreate ng utak natin kaysa plano ng Panginoon. And so this is very important. So let's recap how to align your will with God's will. First is spend a lot of time in prayer. The second is be humble. Kumbaba tayo. Pangatlo is patience. Mas habaan pa ang pasensya. At number 4 is to surrender. Surrender tayo sa kalooban ng Panginoon. So, once we do these things, we are aligning our will with God's will. So, in in this process, well, I'm saying also na achieving these steps, hindi siya easy, guys. It takes time, it takes trial and error. Kasi, sa buhay natin, we will admit na ang dami talagang distraction at madami yung pursuit ng ating utak, your pursuits of the mind. And we have so many distractions and so many pursuits of the mind that we neglect our spiritual life. And these steps are part of the spiritual life, which is more important kaysa physical natin at material na buhay dito sa mundo. Kaya, pag pinapractice mo ito, everyday, consistently, you will start to open up your soul. At kapag open yung souls natin, we can discern the voice, we can discern the guidance, and we can discern the will of God. And one day, you will just realize when you are practicing the steps and never giving up and always asking, and if you practice the steps in aligning your will to God, you will realize also na yung mga hinihingi mo pala, ilan sa mga hinihingi mo, you will just know it in your heart. It's an inside knowing na alam mo lang, parang alam mo na kung ano yung hihingin mo. So when you practice the steps to align yourself with God's will, the more you become intuitive, the more you discern that this is the will, His will for you, na kahit sa magdarasal ka pa lang, when you ask something from God, you will know what to ask. And you will just know. And it's kind of like there's a guidance what to ask. Na if my guidance na ito yung hihingiin mo, then there is a guarantee na yung hinihingi mo ay ibibigay. Okay? So personally, na-experience ko ito so many times in my life, and I will share one example na I prayed today, and that night na-fulfill yung yung pinagdarasal ko. So couple years back, nung nag-migrate ako dito sa US, wala akong dalang winter na mga damit pang winter. And so I prayed. Sabi ko, God, paano ba to? Wala akong alam talaga saan mag-shopping, ano yung sizing ko, ano yung style, or ano talaga yung isusuot for winter. And so when I prayed, and I prayed sincerely as well, na help me God. That night, a lady came up, like she was my husband's distant relative's friend, and she came up. She knocks on the door at the house, and she brought like this huge tub of clothing, winter clothing, that she brought in, because she said, oh, I'm bringing this to you because it's too small for me, because at that time she was she just gave birth at lumalaki yung katawan niya, and believe it or not, guys, size ko yung damit na dinadala niya. So I was so like amazed, kasi sinasagot yung pinagdarasal ko, and I'm so happy, and I can tell more stories about it, like these kinds na instant yung answer na specific, and I will talk more about prayers in topics about prayers in the future, based on my personal experience at yung understanding ko din. So, for today, that's it for today. Sana meron akong na-share sa inyo na mapagkukunan nyo ng additional knowledge at makakatulong sa inyo na maging closer sa ating Panginoon. Salamat po. Kung meron kayong questions, concerns, o hindi kayo nag-agree sa sinasabi ko, feel free to reach out. Meron akong Facebook page na nakalink in the description box. At pwede din kayong mag-iwan ng comments or mag-email din. Okay? Hanggang sa susunod, mga friends, I hope that your day is fantastic and you are blessed. Mag-ingat po kayong lahat at salamat po. Bye-bye. See you next time.